I was coerced, I was deceived.
Human trafficking doesn't only just happen on a global level, but it happens right here on the Gulf Coast. And so many people fall victim to it in isolation.
They have been robbed of their childhood, they've been robbed of their innocence.
But boys and young men are trafficked as well.
They've been ignored. So we have decided to open Samuel's Place,
the first safe home in the nation to serve boys ages 16 and younger who've been trafficked.
Here's part one of Darkness to Light.
For security reasons, the survivor of human trafficking is choosing to remain anonymous. But what you're about to hear is a story she's never told before. She says she hopes her narrative will shed light on the real dangers of human trafficking and new programs in place to help survivors.
I was coerced, I was deceived. It's a whole mind game.
Every day, millions of people are sold to the monster of human trafficking. 20 years ago, one woman found herself in its powerful grip. For the very first time, she's sitting down with me, ready to share her story.
If I can get this out there, then maybe somebody can hear it and not go through the same thing that I went through.
She says her story begins when she was introduced to drugs and moved to New York City.
I was 20 years old at the time. I was staying in a homeless shelter. I ended up going out one night for some reason and I got lost. It started getting dark.
That night, she says a man overheard her asking a street vendor for directions.
It offered to give me a ride to go back to the shelter, and I agreed. That would be great. Very naive, very naive. And then so he offered me a job opportunity because I didn't have any money.
But there was no job.
There was this other guy who kind of stepped in and it was like, do you want to go with me? I was like, well, I don't want to get killed by this guy, because he was a pimp. I ended up staying there for 4 months. I tried multiple times to get home.
After months of abuse and torture, she met a man who helped her escape back to Mobile. Although physically free, she says emotionally she was trapped.
Once I got out, I did not get help. That's the key. I did not get help. I was in shame. I didn't even really understand what really just happened to me. It just happened so fast.
After tumultuous years of victories and relapses, she finally found peace.
Trauma lives in our body, and so because I didn't deal with it, the cycle, it just goes, there's a whole cycle.
Now she's using her story to counsel others who are facing similar trauma.
I'm working on my social work degree so I can get my master's and do trauma therapy. My higher power, who I choose to call Jesus, my Lord and Savior, he's really just been there with me the whole time.
As she continues to heal, she says her biggest regret is not getting help sooner.
If I knew the resources was there, I would have been able to take care of it back then and not have to go through the whole re-victimization.
One local woman is doing what she can to help stop the re-victimization. She's opened a home for girls and young women who've been trafficked and exploited. Chris Zebach is the founder of Camille Place. She says survivors are usually taken to detention centers or placed in foster care, places not equipped to handle the trauma they've endured.
They've been sold to various people, even through the night. They are tired, they are hungry, scared to eat.
So in 2020, with an army of donors and volunteers, the 16-bedroom home Camille Place was born. In the past year, 12 young girls have found refuge at Camille Place, the youngest just 11 years old. Zebach says a majority of the girls have been trafficked by the ones closest to them.
The familial trafficking is at an all-time high. Majority of the children that we have served have been because of the families being involved in the trafficking.
Early on, she says many of them sleep with blankets over their heads.
You walk in the room in the morning and you see them laying on their back with their head exposed, and you realize then that she's now found peace.
It's a chance to start over.
Last year at Christmas, all of them wanted, including the 19-year-old, a baby doll. They have been robbed of their childhood, they've been robbed of their innocence.
The home offers holistic healing through nutrition, therapeutic activities like gardening and painting, and even accredited education.
And some have not even known how to spell their name, and we get them on an individualized program based on where they are. So they may be 16 and on a 3rd grade level.
Just this year, 2 girls even graduated high school. Currently, 20 staff members serve at Camille Place, providing around-the-clock care.
We have a residential coordinator, we have a program director, we have the house moms, cook staff, therapists come in.
The survivor we spoke to couldn't hide her smile when she learned about Camille Place.
I saw your eyes light up when I was talking about Camille Place earlier and how girls have that step one process right after they've been trafficked. They have that source of hope.
Yeah.
Do you wish that you would have had something like Camille Place in your situation?
Absolutely, absolutely. I wish that I would have had Camille Place whenever I got out of that. I wish I would have had a crisis center whenever I went through my psychosis.
And she says women aren't the only ones affected.
It's just as bad for the men as it is for the girls.
Chris Ziebach is bridging the gap that exists in survivor resources, and she's opening the nation's first safe home for boys under 16 rescued from human trafficking. I'll take you there tomorrow in part 2 of Darkness to Light. Right now, there are no safe homes in Alabama for boys rescued from human trafficking, but that's about to change with the construction of a new home called Samuel's Place. Here's part 2 of our special report, Darkness to Light.
They've been ignored. The boys that have been exploited, they don't get the help they need.
Just 1 year after opening Camille Place, Alabama's first safe home for girls and young women rescued from human trafficking, Chris Ziebach is building a boys' home. Camille Place currently serves girls ages 6 to 19 who've been pulled from modern-day slavery. But the male population is often overlooked.
We have gotten many calls across the United States, and several of our girls have had brothers that we could place and they could still have family reunification. So we have decided to open Samuel's Place to serve young boys that have been trafficked or exploited.
Ground has already been broken on Samuel's Place in South Alabama. It will be the first safe home in the nation to serve boys ages 16 and younger who've been trafficked. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime released a global report on human trafficking in 2023. The report notes that the percentage of boys identified as victims of human trafficking more than quintupled between 2004 and 2020. It also says males account for 40% of all identified victims of trafficking.
Our executive director has spent her life working with young boys with emotional disturbances, and she is very ready to jump in and help these little boys overcome their trauma.
Construction is already underway on Samuel's Place, adjacent to another building that has been donated to help trafficking survivors. Inspiring words written by the girls at Camille Place have been set on the foundation and concrete has been poured. But that's not all.
We also are opening Lily's Place in East Alabama for young girls similar to Camille Place, but that need the psychiatric services that we cannot provide.
The goal for Lily's Place residents is to eventually transition to Camille Place.
What we're seeing with the psychological evaluations is that there are many with mental health. We've turned over 15 away. We don't know, is this trauma or is this a biological genetic issue that this child has?
One survivor of human trafficking says anyone can be susceptible to exploitation, regardless of age, race, or gender.
It happened to us, but that's not who we are. But that's what we're labeled as.
She was trafficked 20 years ago before personal cell phones and social media became prevalent. Now, she says technology has only made the problem worse. A mom herself, she's warning parents to be involved in their children's lives.
She's not getting on social media till she's old enough to understand. We have to have those talks with our kids, because if we don't, somebody else will, and it's not going to be who you want it to be.
Finally, she's urging the community to support homes like Camille Place, Lily's Place, and Samuel's Place. There, she says children will go from darkness to light.
It's very much needed. We need these. We need these places, because these are going to be the avenues to help save our children.
And if you want to join the fight, Zebach tells me they're in desperate need of donors and volunteers to build both facilities. They're also actively searching for staff members. To help, visit the link on our website at fox10tv.com. Thank you for joining me for an inside look at the valiant efforts being done to fight human trafficking right here in Alabama.